Esther becomes, we're just going for the recording, we're just going over a little bit of what we did last week. Esther becomes the woman that she's not in the biblical text the way we have it. She's the updated Esther, as I fantasized, some educator at a girls' school in the second century BCE, and somebody saying, "Well, this text does not provide a good role model for our young women," and so she's updated. Now, Susanna doesn't come to replace a woman that we know from the book of Daniel, and the purpose of this introduction to Daniel, as was already seen by one of the church fathers, is in order to kind of set up. So, who is this Daniel? Why is he so special? And this is a story about, in many ways, about Daniel. But the essence of this story is not about Daniel. The essence of the story is about Susanna, this woman. And in some ways, or in many ways, this too provides an example of a Eshet Chayil, the woman we want our children, our daughters to model themselves after. I'm going to come back to that theme time after time, especially when we get to Judith, when we get to the story in Maccabees as well. Okay, were there any? Oh, and I wanted to share with you. Tybel shared with me that this lovely table. You can see it on screen. Maybe too hard to read exactly, but I'll put the link in the chat box for everybody to have in just a moment. But you can see here the differences between what we call the Masoretic text, the Tanakh, an Orthodox Bible, a Catholic Bible, and a Protestant Bible. And you can see here you can see the order of the books of the canon, but more important for our conversation, you can see what books are in and what books are not in. I think so. Yes, here, over here. You see the extra wisdom in Sirach, and over here, Judith, Tobit, Maccabees, Tobit, excuse me. Okay, so let me put that in the chat box for everybody. Okay. All right. So, any comments or questions before we go on to Susanna?
Yes, I certainly I have very strong feelings about this. I first learned about this story because it was made into an opera, an American opera in the middle of the 20th century, set in Appalachia. So it's a different setting, but it's the same story where a completely innocent, virtuous woman is seen bathing by a bunch of lascivious men who then decide that what they ought to do is destroy her. The only thing different is that in the opera, she goes to the preacher for help and he rapes her,
Oh no.
which it seems very fitting in this story. It's just all these men who, because she's beautiful, they can't see her as a person. They just see her as an object of their unwanted lust, and therefore she has to be destroyed. And that is so terrifying to me, so
So
infuriating.
we of course we don't want to give away what's going to happen in the story. So
I'm sorry.
we don't want to give away. Those that study with me, I often humorously say, "Oh, you read ahead. You're not supposed to read ahead." But thank you for bringing this up. That's just not everybody has read. I think that Irene, I think that perhaps you read through all the text as if it was a homework assignment.
No, I read
Doctor,
it years ago after I learned about the opera and I saw
oh,
where it
okay,
was from.
okay,
So I
okay.
went and looked it up and
I
I
see.
was just appalled.
Great. In
I'm
any
sorry.
case,
I didn't mean to give the story
no,
away.
no, I'm joking. I'm joking. I think many people perhaps are, but thank you. That's a wonderful parallel. And if at some point you have a link to share with people who want to explore that even more, that would be appreciated, but not necessary. Yes, Taibal.
Um, is it then, and I didn't read ahead, I just know paintings based on what Irene said, but what occurs to me is the reason that it isn't in the canon because it's a continuum between King David and Bathsheba and the Susanna story. And they didn't want people starting on that continuum.
So my response to that would be, First of all, yes, it is very much like the David. We're going to see there's echoes of the David and Bathsheba story here. There's echoes of Judah and Tamar here. Um, as Irene pointed out, it's a very human, male-centric cultural kind of occurrence. Now, the assumption, Tybo, though, your assumption was that it was there and they left it out. Another assumption might be that it wasn't there yet, or similar stories there. In other words, it doesn't have to have been written before the book of Daniel was published. It could have been circulating in a totally different context, and then somebody brought it into the Daniel context, and it didn't necessarily belong. There's no way to know which way to go. I'm just offering both options as far as
I like yours better.
Okay.
And because clearly all the Christian versions of what they call the Old Testament are much later. I like that then.
Okay. All right then. Let's get into it. All right. I think so. Yeah. Okay. So Ria, would you read for us the first? We're going to go paragraph by paragraph, if that's all right. I broke this down so that we could talk a little bit about the pieces each time. If you'd like to read.
Oh, because I don't have it up. Wait a second.
Should we get somebody else, or are you all right?
Yeah, I have to go find where I have the connection.
All right. Then Chuck.
Get somebody else. Yeah.
Chuck, please, if you could read. We're on the second page of the handout, I think. It's the second page of the handout. I'll try to put numbers next time. And it's where it says Susanna, the preface to the book of Daniel.
Could you put it on in the chat so I can get it? Because otherwise I have to go through my whole computer to find it.
Of course. Yeah, let me hold on. I can do that. Just a minute.
I'm very old school. I print everything.
Yeah, I think I suggest usually it's easier also that way we can see each other's faces, but I'm going to put the link right there.
I also print because I like to write on things.
Yeah.
I can't listen without a pencil in my hand.
Okay.
Modern kids don't understand this.
Well, you went to college.
1,000 years ago, yes.
Yeah. But
All right,
we're all
kids.
the same way. We're listen to a lecture, we gotta take notes.
All right, let's go to the first paragraph, Chuck.
First paragraph. There was a man living in Babylon whose name was Joachim. He married the daughter of Hilkiah, named Susanna, a very beautiful woman and one who feared the Lord. Her parents were righteous and entrained their daughter according to the laws of Moses. Joachim was very rich and had a fine garden adjoining his house. The Jews used to come to him because he was the most honored of them all.
Okay, a short paragraph packed with information that we're going to need to know for our story. Biblical descriptions of women do not necessarily give a description of. In general, we don't have description of people's looks. When do we have description, especially of women's looks?
Leah's eyes.
Well, I'm sorry?
Leah's eyes. Leah's eyes being weak because she was about to be married. So it's in the context of it's not in her own right.
Right.
Or Sarah being so beautiful at what age, at what we would consider an advanced age, that Abraham gets worried in Egypt.
Exactly. Right. Or Joseph, or all sorts of characters, or Bathsheba. Here too, I don't think we have. I don't remember if we have a description of Ruth's looks or not. I have a feeling we don't, but I don't remember. Should have checked. But here it's important for the story. And it's equally important, or perhaps more important, that she's a pious woman as well. And she comes from a good home. And that home was a convening place for the community. It's where people hung out. All those things together. Just type one more point beforehand. Who's the first character mentioned in this story?
The husband, but we're not giving his name right away.
the husband, he's not. No. His name is Joachim, right?
Joachim, yeah.
Oh, no, but I meant it doesn't say Joachim was a man living in Babylon. There was a man.
Okay. Yes, but okay. In any case, he's the first character. And what is this story? We know this story is about Susanna or Shoshana. We know it's about Shoshana, but the first character is man. If you flip to the end of the story, so you've got. There's no way we're going to do everything today, but we'll do. Flick to the end of 63. Who's the last character mentioned? Anybody see?
Mine only goes to 15, Rabbi.
There's no. You should have 4 pages of text.
Daniel was the last person mentioned.
Yeah, four
Yeah.
4 pages of text. In any case, Daniel's the last person. This is a something. This is continuing in a biblical tradition. Who's the first character mentioned in the book of Esther? Anybody remember? You have to unmute those.
It's probably her uncle, right? Mordecai?
No, it's Achashverosh.
Ah.
Vayhi bimei Achashverosh. Who's the last person mentioned in the book of Esther? Mordecai. Who's the first person mentioned in the book of Ruth? It's Avimelech. He went down. Who's the last person mentioned in the book of Ruth? Boaz, or
Boaz.
David, actually. The genealogy to David. There's this tendency that stories about women, you can't start with a woman, you can't end with. You have to start formally with a man. You have to end with a man. But the kishkas of the story are really about a woman. And ironically, the names of the books, ironically from that androcentric point of view, ironically the names of the books are the women themselves. But the formality of writing the story begins with a man and ends with a man. And that, of course, as I do so much of what I know, I quote from my friend and teacher, Professor Yair Zakovich. So let's go back to the beginning. So this first paragraph, we have this epicenter of Jewish culture in this place where they're living in Babylon. So they're in the exile. It's a story from the exile. Let's go on to the next paragraph. Go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and read, Chuck? You're a good reader.
That year, 2 elders from the people were appointed as judges. Concerning them, the Lord had said, "Wickedness come forth from Babylon, from elders who were judges, who were supposed to govern the people. These men were frequently at Joachim's house, and all who had a case to be tried came to them there."
So this is the community center. This is the federation. The Jewish Federation is somebody's private home. This is where things happen. These 2 judges, we know that they're corrupt already. And here the text is quoting something, but not telling us where. Does anybody happen to know where this is from? This quote? It's a hard question. So the quote is from Jeremiah. Jeremiah 29, Kaftet, has a reference to these false prophets who in Babylon are been prophesying to the people. And Jeremiah says that it's not their fault. Jeremiah says, don't listen to them. He's got a whole thing there, and that takes on a life of its own in the Midrash. I don't remember if I've done it with this group or not. I have with the Proverbs group. I think that this story actually is a midrashic harchava, widening of midrashic expansion of the tradition in Jeremiah, because there's another one in rabbinic literature as well. And because people who are writing this literature, who see themselves as authority, they know there are others out there who are dangerous to the people. And so this is a tale to warn people about this bad leadership which is out there. Don't listen to them. They're going to steer you down the wrong path. Yes, Rabbi Marcia.
David, I I'm sorry, I'm following along. I can't. What is the actual quote from Jeremiah? I'm not sure. I missed that.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're in verse 5,
Yeah,
where it says, "Wickedness came forth from Babylon, from elders who were judges, who were supposed to govern the people."
I
See the
see.
quotes there?
Yes, I okay, now I do.
So
Yes.
it's not an exact quote, but it's a definite reference to Jeremiah 29, verse 20. Um,
Okay.
so to me, this is interesting because if this is considered, at least in Alexandria, not only by Christians, right, in the Christian tradition, but by the Jewish tradition in Alexandria, if this is considered to be their Tanakh, their Bible, then this is a good example of inner biblical midrash, which I'm pretty sure we've done a class like that before. I think it was called Connecting the Dots. Oh,
Yeah.
maybe it was 4 or 5. It was a long time ago, but it's so wonderful. We've studied together, so many of us, for so many years, and we're always adding new people into this. And the Havdil from having this space in Babylon where evil judges plot against women and set them up for failure and for death. Look at the good stuff that we're bringing around in our. And Marcia, this is your garden in Babylon. You've created this garden in Babylon. Yes, Taibele.
I just wanted to say quickly the meaning of Joachim's name, which is what? My trust in God. My trust is in God. My something is in God. My portion is God.
Yeah, I would think that may be possible. Another possibility is Yakim, my God, or Yeho and Yah and Yahu and Adonai is my God will rise. Maybe
But
Kim from Kum. Go ahead.
to me, that's an exclamation point about the fact that we're starting with him, his
Okay.
name.
In other words, God will prevail.
No, not
Okay.
necessarily. Just when I see names, I look them up in my name dictionary
Okay.
because I think the way Hebrew work, I just think that there's extra meaning.
Yes, I agree. And so one of the things we'll want to ask ourselves is, for instance, if her father's name is Hilkiah, in other words, my part. Oh, were you talking about Hilkiah? I think maybe you were talking about Hilkiah, and I
Yes, I
misunderstood.
was talking about Hilkiah because
Yeah,
yeah.
right. So Hilkiah is my part. My achedik sheli, my part is in God. In other words, I have a pious household, and she comes from that household. Her name is Shoshana, is rose or a flower of some sort. We'll have to think perhaps what might that mean. I have an idea, but it'd be interesting to hear what you do. Yehoyakim is probably Yehoyakim. In other words, God will rise, and that's why I suggested God will prevail. So I'm with you on the names being meaningful here. Um, okay, so we're setting up the step. We've got a piety and beauty on one side. We have the area is the stage is a garden, which is a focal point of communal coming together. It's supposed to be of justice, two judges. That's where you go to get your justice. And so a lot of irony or foundations for irony is being built up here. We have this rose, and let's go to verse 7. Megan, you want to read for us 7?
When the people left at noon, Susanna would go into her husband's garden to walk. Every day the two elders used to see her going in and walking about, and they began to lust for her. They suppressed their consciences and turned away their eyes from looking to heaven or remembering their duty to administer justice. Both were overwhelmed with passion for her, but they did not tell each other of their distress, for they were ashamed to disclose their lustful desire to have intercourse with her. Day after day, they watched eagerly to see her. Dun, dun, dun.
And the storyteller, yes, how you can imagine the music in the background, and the tension is building, and the sexual frustration is building, and our sense of doom is building. Oh no, oy vey, everything is coming together in this beautiful garden where she would walk on her own because it's her husband's. And when everybody left, thought she's on her own. She's bathing on her own. And then comes this reference, of course, to David HaMelech and Bathsheba. Of course, this idea of seeing a woman, on one hand, it's intolerable. On the other hand, well, what are you going to do? She's naked. She's beautiful. There's even a little bit of male chauvinistic apologetics here, perhaps. God forbid, of course, but I think that's in the background of what people might think. And perhaps now somebody, why is her name Shoshana? Anybody? Why is her name Rose or Beautiful Flower? She's in the garden.
She's in the garden. She's in a flower garden. She's one of the flowers in the garden.
The flower in the garden, right? And maybe just decided flowers in the garden are to be, seen, smelled, admired, but maybe not picked. I'm not sure, but I think she's the flower in the garden. Ria, did you want to say something?
Yes. When was Song of Songs written in comparison to when this was written?
I think we think it's much, much earlier. Song of Songs has elements of ancient Hebrew and poetry. Whether it was part of the canon, how it was interpreted, we don't really know. Some people say, and believe in total honesty, it would never have been included in the canon had it not been an allegory for the relationship between God and the people of Israel, as the rabbis saw it.
So this is treated much differently, and I just was wondering if if anything from the biblical literature it influences another. They're written at different times. Did they actually know it existed? So the concept of love in Song of Songs, say, take out the allegorical concept, but that it's really a song of love between two people, is so much different.
And hence perhaps the irony of it, right? The Song of Songs talks very much about the beauty, the physical beauty, which is combined together with the emotional love. This is not love. This is lust after the physical beauty. So in that way, very much, I would agree with you. This is another example of inner biblical midrash, not as direct as the quote from Jeremiah, the reference to Jeremiah, but still, yes, Irene.
She's a flower in the garden. A flower is something beautiful that you look at, that you have complete control over. You can take it inside your house and enjoy it and look at it. So she's being equated with these other objects. She's being objectified.
Absolutely. And it gets worse. So, Irene, why don't you continue reading for us?
I can't. I don't have the hand or whatever it is.
The handout. So there's a link to it in.
Oh,
right, so
well, ask somebody else and I'll go get the link.
Okay, great. Okay,
Yeah.
So we try to send out the link the day before for what we're going to do, so people have the opportunity to print it out and then use the screen, or else to have it on their screen. So then, Ria, do you have the text now? Are you ready to read?
Which number are we on now? I forgot. Is it 15?
13.
No, we're 13.
Okay.
It's during lunch break.
Okay, one day they said to each other, "Let us go home, for it's time for lunch." So they both left and parted from each other, but turning back, they met again. And when each pressed the other for the reason, they confessed their lust. Then together they arranged for a time when they could find her alone. Oh,
Kind of dark comedy here almost, right?
yeah.
They're sneaking around, and you can imagine how this was staged. It would be fascinating to see how it was staged in the opera, this kind of a scene. Okay, but so the plot thickens, but now it's not just one lusting independently; it's two plotting. Let's bring the lust now to implementation, if I can say such a thing. Ria, go ahead and read another paragraph for us, please.
Once, when they were watching for an opportune day, she went in as before with only two maids and wished to bathe in the garden, for it was a hot day. No one was there, except the two elders who had hidden themselves and were watching her. She said to her maids, "Bring me olive oil and ointments, and shut the garden door so that I can bathe." They did as she told them. They shut the doors of the garden and went out by the side doors to bring what they had been commanded. They did not see the elders because they were hiding. Oh.
Hey, two maids, hot day, lock the door. She's doing what she needs to do to protect her privacy, right? So the narrator is setting her up in a way that it's not to be able to say, well, she brought it upon herself. Possibly a biblical reference, possibly one of the cruelest, if not the cruelest tradition in Midrash. That's ridiculous. That's hyperbolic. That one of the cruelest traditions in Midrash that I know is the interpretation about Dinah, Yaakov's daughter, Vateitzei Dinah, and she goes out. And rabbinic tradition has, had she not, I'm oversimplifying the text, but had she not gone out, this wouldn't have happened to her. She should have stayed at home. She brought it, blaming the victim. And the narrator goes out of his way here to not blame the victim. She did everything they should possibly do. Interesting that it mentions not one but two maidens to show her importance. She's not on her own. She's accompanied, but also this element of having somebody with you so that you're not in yichud, right? Yichud, those that grew up Orthodox perhaps remember the term yichud, that a man and woman can't be, if they're not married, they can't be, unless they're related, close family, can't be in a room with the door closed together. She's careful not to. That will come up in Judith, as it came up last week with Esther as well. Esther doesn't go in to see Achashverosh on her own. She has her servant with her. And so it's almost as if she's double. She's got two with her, except for she needed her ointments. She needed her shampoo. Yes, Taiba.
And when you started with the Midrash on Dinah, before you said Dinah, yes, you said Midrash, but I thought you were going to go to Sota.
We will talk about Sota. I promise we'll get to Sota. Okay? I can't see your face, so I hope you're all right with that. Did you just disappear? Where did you go? Oh, there you are. Okay.
All Oops. Right. Of course. I just was saying that when you ask a question, I try to answer it, and I didn't go to Dinah because there's so little like.
Right. And you're totally on the right. You're totally on the right back. So the better connection, I think a more productive connection with Sota than you've already made will come as we continue to read, as you might know. Malka, Rabbi Malka, did you want to say something?
Yes, I was thinking of the story of the Sota, but also of the Pelegish Bagiba.
Oh, yeah, complicated. And I remember you brought up the story before, this horrible part of the addendum to the book of Judges. Horrible objectification in the worst possible way. Yeah, what can I say? As a Jewish man, I'm embarrassed at our tradition, at the kinds of stories we have. Of course.
Wait, Rabbi, no collective guilt.
Well,
thank you.
Unless, of course, I fall into this. I have been guilty of the same kinds of things at lesser degree in my own life, or still am. Then I need to think about it. In any case, I think that it's an important thing for us men to constantly be sensitive about, and how we speak, how we constantly mansplain. And I hope, again, if I'm doing that here, I apologize. But let's move on in our story. We're getting some traction here. We're getting some schwung, as we would say in Yiddish and Hebrew. Okay, so, and at this particular point, who do we have reading? Susan, would you like to read 19, verse 19?
Yes. When the maids had gone out, the two elders got up and ran to her. They said, "Look, the garden doors are shut and no one can see us. We are burning with desire for you, so give your consent and lie with us. If you refuse, we will testify against you that a young man was with you, and this was why you sent your maids away.
Oh, sneaky, sneaky. Despicable. Despicable behavior. But they asked for her consent. Why?
That's not consent.
Oh, big deal.
Okay.
That's not consent, though. Even if she
They
said it.
know. Yeah, they're trapping her.
Right.
So I bring this up because from, collective guilt, the comment before, and from Me Too onwards, and Me Too especially, in that age of Me Too that still has left important changes, I would hope, at least to being conscious of how often men fantasize for themselves that it will be, willingly, and yet it's setting up a situation where it's not free. It's not a freedom of choice. Yeah. So a real insight into horrible male behavior when it comes to these kind of things. But there's another reason, and think about that, and we'll come up as we move on. Why it's important for the narrator to go into such detail here, not just to show how diabolical these two schmucks are, but another reason as well. Okay, go ahead and please continue. Another, Susan, another.
Susanna groaned and said, I am completely trapped, for if I do this, it will mean death for me. If I do not, I cannot escape your hands. I choose not to do it. I will fall into your hands rather than sin in the sight of the Lord.
Okay, so what do we learn from this, which is really important?
She has no choice, really, no agency. But she's not going to deliberately lie with these men. She's just not going to do it.
But she does have agency. I'm gonna push back here.
Well, between a rock and a hard place.
Okay,
Well,
but
couldn't she have said that she couldn't, in Deuteronomy, I think, where if the woman cries out, right, that she could have.
Malka, way to go. Exactly. This translation is a little misleading. When I think of a groan, I said, oi, what am I going to do? To me, that's what a groan is. But the word, the Greek word that is translated here as groan, is the same Greek that translates tsa'aka. Litzok is to shout, is to cry out. And it's exactly a reference, I believe, it's not just me, it's the commentaries here, Moore's commentary at least. It's a reference to Deuteronomy 22, what Rabbi Malka just referenced, that if a woman is being raped in the field and she cries out, then the law will look favorable. But if she agrees, she doesn't cry out, then it's as if she's given her consent. In itself, a horrible
Now, that has lasted until this day in courtrooms. They ask that question, did you scream? Well, not everybody screams. We're in the middle of getting raped. Sorry.
Right. Except for this is an important distinction. In the end, it's not excusable, but she's not raped. There is no gang rape here. There was the danger of a gang rape, not just a rape, a gang rape. I think two can be considered a gang. But it actually doesn't happen. And she becomes her kedusha, her sacred character is elevated because she stands. Look at her. She's willing to suffer what's going to happen now, even perhaps be put to death, because for her it's important, the principle. Again, this is male fantasy in a different way. It's not male fantasy of lust. It's recognizing that males lust after, that they have those kinds of fantasies, but it's the male fantasy of the perfect woman who, even when confronted in this way with power by two men, whatever, and she could have done it, and she could have said, it's not my fault. She didn't do it. She didn't consent, which is why we needed to have those words from the judges, if you consent, not just to show how diabolical they were. Ria, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, so it's interesting. This theme comes up in other times. So, I seem to remember that in Talmud, in Midrash, there's a story of a woman is bathing in the river, and two rabbis. Oh no, I got it. Where one of the rabbis is bathing in the river, and the other one comes along, and so there's this other sexual enticement that involves two men. So there's this very. It seems like this is a constant worry in different groupings of writings.
There's heteroeroticism and there's homoeroticism, and that story refers to homoeroticism. And it would be fascinating to go back to that story and take it apart between Ravashi and Rabbi Yochanan.
Rabbi Yochanan.
Yeah, Rabbi Yochanan, and to see, what are the references. But on the other hand, Ria, also the Heicha Timsa, we would say when I was in Yeshiva. What's the Heicha Timsa? What's the what you find in the field is when you see this happens. People take off their clothes to go bathing, and so because that explains why you would see and you would lust after them, as opposed to, because otherwise they're in their own rooms, So it happens to be the way of the world as well. My guess would be this motif of seeing somebody bathing is something we find all over the world. That would be my guess. I don't know. James.
Yeah, I mean, one of my theories is that the Torah itself, a large part of it is about male behavior and controlling male behavior. And this whole, notice it uses the word lust. When we talk about, like men in general, how often does a young teenage boy think about have a sexual thought? About 30 times in a minute. It's there. It's a tremendous drive in the male. And I think the Torah is trying to show how do we control this in a very subtle way. In this story, it starts off that there are these bad, wicked men. And notice they use the word lust. I wonder how many times we use the term lust when it comes to males. And do we even use the term lust when we have a female? Does a female lust after someone? And so it's an issue. It's a really big issue, I think, in society in general.
Yeah.
How male act towards women and their power that they can put over women. And I think a large part is women don't quite understand it sometimes. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's there. And I think it's the Torah a lot of Torah and other writings kind of dance around it in a certain way, but they don't really address it directly. Like I never in the Ten Commandments, I noticed they don't really have any, thou shalt not lust over someone else's wife. But, why don't they have something about rape itself in the Ten Commandments directly? I would think, they had to put in one more commandment. That might be the commandment.
Okay. Well, thanks for the reflection. So to relate to some of the things you brought up, first of all, our translation says lust. The exact Greek would be heartsick over, which is that builds up the irony. That goes back to what Ria said about this confusion of love and lust. Right. Heartsick. So just as a comment to the translation, I don't know that we have the wherewithal to go in depth every verse, but that's why I just looked up what the lust was in the Greek. Yes, the Torah. First of all, James, the Torah is speaking to men. It's not speaking to women. We, in our feminist and post-feminist approach to Judaism, everybody at the table here, we include women in the listeners and sometimes women in the writers or in the background of these kinds of things. But the Torah is written for men. I often, when I do an explanation of Talmud and break down the 6 orders of the Mishnah, the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, and one of them is called Nashim, and then people say, oh, that's so nice. You've got, that's, in non-Jewish circles, oh, there's a whole section about women. No. It's not about Nashim in the Talmud, in the Mishnah and the Talmud, and after it's not about women. It's about how men deal with women. That's a different kind of a thing. And so yes. Now, why is rape not mentioned in Ten Commandments? There could be, I don't know. I don't have a real answer to that. I'm not sure it was a real question in any case. But rape is addressed in Deuteronomy, not in an adequate fashion from our point of view. And then there's that story about it as well, which is even is more difficult, inadequate, because we see two reactions to it. Both of the reactions were not in the pshat, in the simple meaning of Genesis itself, whether it's the reactions of the brothers or whether it's the reaction of Jacob himself. We're not really entirely sure that we agree with that, but I think that's what the narrator is very torn over that as well. I think there's a definite lack of comfort about this issue. All right, we've got a few questions here, and then we'll move on. Irene, go ahead, and then Tybal.
Well, two things. One very brief comment. I really like James's comment about girls just don't know, and that's true. Teenage girls, especially pre-teenage girls, they don't know. I grew up, I was one of 4 girls. Nobody told me. It wasn't until I was in college that I knew that men are wired differently. I just simply didn't know. But the other comment is that very interesting about the Greek translation, because they're not heartsick. That's not what they are. But from those translators' point of view, presumably men, it was, oh, we want her, we can't have her, oh, we're heartsick. They were fetching. But that's not love. They're not heartsick.
Well, I think that it could be irony, though. In other words, before we diss the translators, that could be their sense of irony, saying it in such a way.
Okay.
That's not what it's really about. I actually said heartsick. It would be lovesick. Chala from the root from chala, from the word chole.
Or it's just a euphemism.
Yeah. Yes, Tybal.
Sorry, I keep getting the wrong button. We as moderns talk about the phenomenon of projection, which is when you were talking about what Nashim really is, it's part of it has to do with projection. But when we've been talking, I was reminded of a piece of Talmud that I think illuminates a certain worldview, and it's the piece of Talmud about sometimes she's thought of as an innkeeper, Rahav, innkeeper, or sometimes maybe prostitute, I don't know. But the piece of Talmud that says when men just said her name, they had an ejaculation. Yeah. So that's clearly not anything a woman is doing. Right. Yeah. And she's not necessarily in the physical presence. And that, I think, is, given what we're talking about, I thought I would bring that text.
Right. Yeah. Her name is Rachav, which means spread open wide. That's where that's kind of the etymological context for that. Again, difficult comment in our history. Oh, there are. I mean, I could give many years of courses on erotica, sexual issues in biblical and Talmudic literature. You know, just the story of Yudah and Tamar in biblical. You know, and how what I think the simple meaning of the text is, and what happened in Jewish interpretation. If we take the example of Rachav, this is important. I'm going to deviate for a second, which is not rare. I deviate almost all the time. Is that there's on one hand a consciousness of the injustice of man to woman, man vis-a-vis woman, the injustice, the sexism. There's a consciousness of it, but there's also an acceptance of that world. And in some texts, there's more, and then there's also a consciousness, well, we don't really want to talk about that. You mentioned beforehand, perhaps this story was left out because then people will think of David and Bathsheba. Well, you know where David and Bathsheba doesn't occur, for instance? In Josephus, as you may know this already, Tybal, in Josephus's restating or biblical paraphrase, Josephus goes through a lot of the biblical narrative, And he conveniently leaves out certain things, like David and Bathsheba, and like Judah and Tamar. And Josephus, I don't think refers to this. I don't. But although this will be different. The stories which are uncomfortable. In the same way, Josephus translates, as does this Septuagint, is Rachav Hazonah, is the pundakait. The word that Josephus uses in Greek, pundakait. Those that know modern Hebrew, a pundak in Hebrew is an inn. We use it still in. It's not so much today in 21st century Hebrew, but in mid-century Hebrew language, still people refer to a pundak as an inn. Certainly in Hasidic stories where they stop by and drink in an inn and they're with the Rebbe. But a pundakai is somebody who, the innkeeper, pundakait, the innkeeper. Well, it happens to be that he could get away with that because that's where prostitutes often were. They were in the inn. So the innkeeper, like in the Wild West kind of a thing that we're thinking of, that perhaps we're thinking of. And so this idea of the, and then that brings, I think it's Radak in the medieval to say, well, zonah comes from the word mazon, from feeding. She was really a feeder. She wasn't this. On one hand, you have this tradition that you referred to in the Talmud, absolute recognition that men have these fantasies, right? On the other hand, you have this covering up of it, this apologetics for it. Okay, that was way too much of a diversion. James, your hand is up. Did you want to make another comment? No. Okay.
No. Yeah.
Okay. Breathless. I'm out of breath here, but it's good. It's good. Let's see. Let's have Eileen. Would you like to read for us now?
I can't get it. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, Eileen. This time.
Oh.
Then Susanna,
yeah, go ahead.
Then Susanna cried out with a loud voice, and the two elders shouted against her. And one of them ran and opened the garden doors. When the people in the house heard the shouting in the garden, they rushed in at the side door to see what had happened to her. And when the elders told their stories, the servants felt very much ashamed, for nothing like this had ever been said about Susanna.
Go ahead.
The next day, when the people gathered at the house of her husband Joachim, the two elders came, full of their wicked plot to have Susanna put to death. In the presence of the people, they said, "Send for Susanna, the daughter of Hilkiah, the wife of Joachim." So they sent for her, and she came with her parents, her children, and all her relatives.
So let's pause for a moment with that scene, right? So the tension's built up. It's coming to a head. She's being put on trial. How does she show up to trial? She's
not with shame. I'm not saying we don't know that she doesn't feel any shame, but someone which a victim can feel shamed, she brings her family to show that she believes she's in the right.
Right.
Well, she comes with what's the word?
A posse?
No.
Character witness.
No, that's not. I'm keep talking. I'll think of it.
Okay. And Eileen, were you going to say something?
She just came with her support to show that she was a family person.
So, Zela Tovata, it's in her. It looks good for her because she's confident. Everybody's supporting her because they know the truth. It also looks really good for her family, right? And for her husband.
Coterie. She shows up with her coterie.
Great word, yeah.
She's one of a powerful group.
She also didn't keep it a secret from her family.
Right. I don't think she's ashamed at all. She's outraged. Why should she be ashamed? What did she do?
And well, exactly. That's what we say now, but this might have been at the time of its writing, whenever it was, in the 2nd or 3rd century BC, whenever it's from. This might have been a way of saying to young women, don't let your shame defeat you. Be proud of your chastity is not the right word, of your modesty, your justifiable, proud of standing up for who you are and for your own rights as well. It's a powerful statement here. She's going, And it's also very, very dramatic. You can imagine the staging of this in a movie as well. So she's being brought down, towards this trial. Um, let's see who we have somebody else who'd like to read. James, would you like to read?
Okay. Okay. Now Suzanne was a woman of great refinement and beauty, beautiful in appearance. As she was veiled, the scoundrels ordered her to be unveiled, so that they might feast their eyes on her beauty. Those who were with her and all who saw her were weeping.
Okay, now we're going to take a break. So, or whoever mentioned beforehand sota, I think it was, but this is a good time to talk about sota. Sota is the law in Bamidbar, Deuteronomy chapter 5, about a woman who is suspected, not a woman who has been adulterous, who's suspected of adultery. And there's the ordeal, I think most of people here, if not, you could look it up, of drinking this bitter water. This water was mixed with water and earth, and if she has been unfaithful, then her stomach will explode, will blow up, whatever, it'll swell and burst, and she'll die. And if not, then she'll be all right. Of course, many of us say, well, that's the wisdom of the Torah to create an ordeal which probably never, although either maybe it always caused some sort of disaster because who knows what they mixed with the water, or it never did. One way or another, this is in order to appease the husband who is suspicious of his wife, and there's an entire okay. So Book of Numbers, but and in that law, as she is brought to the court, they undo her hair. Undo is the word there. I forgot the Hebrew word, but pormimet rosha, maybe. And the idea there probably is that her hair was up, not that she was veiled. The veil is I'll talk about the veil in a second, but in biblical times, we have no knowledge that women covered their hair, but the hair was up and then it was let out to come down, which was considered to be, and still in some cases to be, in some circles, to be immodest, right? A modest woman, young woman, has her hair up. You'll see in Haredi circles, it's very rare to see a woman who has long hair which is combed down. I'm talking about a single woman before her head is covered. But I didn't mention today, but as the same in Esther, there are different versions of the Greek. The whole book of Daniel has two different recensions. One is called Theodosius, and the Greek, the Septuagint, has a calmer version, but in Theodosian's version, she is unveiled. It's not she's unveiled. Her breasts are bared. Her dress has been torn open, and then the purpose is they just want to have a look at her. They want to humiliate her, but they also want to feast their eyes. It's even more evil, more wicked in that version. And there's a biblical connection here also to Ezekiel 16, but for another time. Okay, so comments or questions at this particular point before we move on. Okay.
Is this in the book of Daniel to show, because Daniel comes in at the end and he makes everything right. So he's like what's that term? The Deus ex machina.
Right,
he shows up and fixes everything.
But we haven't met Daniel yet in our reading. So we'll get there, okay? All right. Let's Chuck, you want to read for us again, please? We're in verse 34.
34, thank you. Then the two elders stood up before the people and laid their hands upon her head. Through her tears, she looked up toward heaven, for her heart trusted in the Lord. The elders said, "While we were walking in the garden alone, this woman came in with two maids, shut the garden doors, and dismissed the maids. Then a young man who was hiding there came to her and was intimate with her. We were in a corner of the garden. When we saw this wickedness, we ran to them. Although we saw him, have intercourse with her, we could not hold the man because he was stronger than we. And he opened the doors and got away. We did, however, seize this woman and asked who the young man was, but she would not tell us. These things we testify because they were elders of the people and judges. The assembly believed them and condemned her to death. Boy.
So difficult, huh? It's difficult. We still haven't met Danielle yet. We still don't know how she's going to get out of it. But at this point in the story, when you're reading the story for the first time, when it's being told around the campfire, or around the table to the children by the Bobbe, the Zayde, who are telling these stories, you can imagine the injustice of it all. And despite the fact that her family were there, she was humiliated. And then they get up and they're believed, because not only are they men, but their leadership. Not only their leadership, but their justices, their judges, and how could they possibly? And again, a typical example from all over the world in a male-centric, in an androcentric kind of society. Let's see, and of course she's put to death because she's been adulterous. She's married to another man and has sex, and they will testify it, because how many you need two edim, you need two witnesses to testify for any kind of a case, all the more so for this kind of a case. Yes, Ria.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sort of going to take us a little bit away from this, that the veiling is could be, there's another major one is when Moses is with God on Mount Sinai, and he can't look at God, and God hides God's face. And so I wonder if this, did it use any of the same words that were used?
I'd have to look that up. I don't know, but I'm going to slightly adjust your connection. Is that it's because Moses was in God's presence that God won't show God's face. That's one part of it. But even what Moses did see caused his face to shine, to have horns, to have rays, right? The Moses with the horn thing. And then Moses put on a masveh. Moses had to wear a mask. I always think to my mind, I always think of the beekeeper's mask kind of a thing. He's got, and that would be because the people could not see, they weren't in a position to see Moses's godliness or God's effect on Moses. And perhaps if certainly if the words would match, if there would be the same Greek word used here that translates the text there, then we could say, like I think perhaps you want to say, is that the godliness is with Shoshana, right? She is showing the godliness. And so they had to feel it was just too much. Yeah. Let's, Sandra, please.
So my question is, they believed him, but where it says, oh my God, we were in the corner of the garden when we saw this wickedness and ran to them. So nobody questions why they were in the corner of the garden where the garden gate was closed.
Not yet. But they were in the garden because that's where they held court. So I think that's why we had that detail beforehand. But we're going to get the cross-examination in just a bit. Nobody yet asked them questions about it. Cantor, Chazan.
So I was wondering, I thought you don't do soda if you have witnesses. I thought soda was for when there isn't witnesses.
Right. So this is not a test case for sota per se, but there's a reference to sota. So it's a biblical reference, and yeah, you are right. The sota is when there are no witnesses, and perhaps it's to say there were no witnesses here because they're full of it, right? Maybe that's a kind of a roundabout way, but yeah. What people will do here, and some of the early commentators, when Jews began to look at these texts in the 19th century, right away they went to this description here, and went to the description in Masechet Sotah in the Mishnah, how she's unveiled and she's paraded in front of the people, this public humiliation. I think of something. Anybody watch Game of Thrones? Nobody?
No,
Jeez, what am I doing with you people?
it had rape in it.
Well, there was a great scene in Game of Thrones where the wicked queen, this horrible, horrible queen, she is humiliated that her son turns to another the religion, whatever. She's publicly humiliated and has to walk through the city naked. But she deserves it because she's a horrible woman. No, I'm not. It's Game of Thrones, right? But she's humiliated in such a way, and I said, "Oh, Sota, Shoshana." That's in my mind. Who knows? And actually, the guy the showrunner for that is actually Jewish. Anyway, what do we have here? We've got James. You have your hand.
Yeah, just a quick question. She wasn't married, right, Shoshana?
No, she was married to a very pious man. It's in the first paragraph.
Okay, I just want.
So therefore, it is adultery.
It is adultery. Okay.
Yeah, because the issue about rape in Deuteronomy is if a woman is raped and she didn't raise her voice, then she has to be married to her rapist, right? If she did raise her voice and then there were witnesses, then he gets put to death. Yeah, also unfair. Okay, it's 10:36. We're going to have to stop now, and I've got to get to the airport. That's what just came up on my screen. Well, I'm not surprised. I am surprised that this is taking 3 times. I wasn't surprised to take 2 times. We will continue here, and I'll provide some additional text for us to begin on next week as well. You'll get an announcement. I don't think I'll have it. If I get it together earlier, then we'll ask Madalena to send it out beforehand, or Marcia, whoever sends it out. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
This is a lovely way for me to honor the memory of my friend Raphael, my childhood friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just
Thank
want to
you
wish
very
everybody an enriched Shabbat. Today is Rosh Chodesh Shabbat, as Tyvel noted, and a beautiful way to begin the new month. Sending you all my very best. We'll see you
Mazel
next
tov.
week.
Thank you.
Bye.